software on your laptop or your tablet. I'm missing one here. So 1 second. Should I go, Andrew?
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
I think a couple of people are all right. So I'm just going to open it up, and you guys just go ahead and open it up with me. And this is like a really simple interface. I mean, that's what I like about it. This is actually a beta version of this. So I think because of that, it's kind of like, in a way, not dumb, but I really like that it's almost just very basic. So what you're going to see here is either you can open up an existing file, which we're not going to do tonight, or a new file. So you guys are going to create your own file, right? So you would say new file. Now you would name your project. I don't know why, but my particular name, it's kind of glitchy, but I'll just call it X for tonight. So give it a name, just say create. So that's going to automatically dump you into the actual interface of the creation of an augmented reality artwork object. And I'm just curious, how many of you have like 3D digital work? 3D. A couple of you? Okay. How many of you have two-dimensional work that's either a photograph or digital artwork? Pretty much all of you, right? Okay. So what's great about AR is that it doesn't need to be one or the other. So, the thing to do is to say, okay, well, I need to take my artwork and get it into the software. You need to import it essentially. So, let's say you don't have anything tonight, which I would hope it would be your own work. Adobe actually does have what's called starter assets. And I mean, those could be things like, it goes on and on. There's all these sort of libraries as digital sort of assets seem to have. And you can take any of these, if you don't want to use your own work tonight, or you just want to play around on your own, and kind of import them. So you would just choose whatever, and load it, and you can see here, there it is. And, that's just great. Or you can actually load up your own. Now, how would you load up your own? So, by the way, all of these are just assets that are available. Okay? But what you're like, I got my own work, and I want to load up my own work. You would go to this right here, and then it would prompt you and say, okay, well, where am I grabbing it from? So, obviously I'm going to keep it simple tonight because we're restricted on time. So I'm just going to keep it to 2D right now. This was a work I actually donated to Locust projects for the last raffle, so I figured I'd choose this one. So this is just a JPEG. Actually, this is a PNG, but it could be either one, okay? So if you have 3D assets, and you guys are a little more advanced, it will accept these formats, both in 2D, there's audio, which I'll touch upon, and then there's 3D formats. So these are standard formats that whether you're a 2D artist or 3D artist, you would kind of be familiar with, okay? So I'm just going to move quickly. Any questions about that? All good? Okay. So let's say I'm just going to do 2D tonight. Whatever the case is, you just say open. So we're like, where is it? Probably my little cone here is. There it is. See that? So there it is. It's just an image file. So, but let's say you want to manipulate this, right? Basically, the main sort of navigation is to the left, okay? It's really simple. If I just click on this, you see this kind of, are we all familiar with the XYZ in computer world? Mm-hmm. All right. I mean,
axis. The axis.
Thank you. That's right. So there's sort of these three axes, which is the x-axis, the y, which is vertical, and the z. And I mean, this is as complicated as it gets. And when you click on it, you'll notice that it will show up right here. So if I wanted to lock it, or turn it, if that turns it off, the eye, it's just like Adobe, a lot of Adobe software. If I lock it, I can't do anything to it. But there it is. And what this is kind of your ability to manipulate this artwork, kind of condensed, but I'm going to make it really kind of one step at a time. To select it only, you would click on this, and it just selects it. To move it, and all of these have pop-ups, so, you know. So to move it, it would change into the kind of cube. So if I want to move it off that anchor point, I can move it anywhere I want along the X, Y, or Z axis. You see that? So that means if I maintained this location, what we just did outside with the QR code, if that was the anchor point, this would actually show up off to the side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's why everything's always in relation to the anchor point. If you, let's say I'm like, this is really boring, or actually it's really far from me, I can't see what I'm doing. I'll skip all the way to the bottom. This is called DiLL. And what this does is allow me, and this is, a lot of this is similar to Blender, people are familiar with that. A lot of software is like this. So now I can really begin to look at it. If I want to pan, I can pan. These are the 3 commands. They aren't so much about manipulation, but just about movement. I can orbit, the orbit command. There it is. But like I said, I still want to like mess around with this thing. So let's say I want to rotate it. Here's the rotate command, which is right under the move command. And you notice that there's green, red, and blue. And green, red, and blue kind of correspond to the X, Y, Z. So if I move the green and I start rotating it, look at the Y here. You see that under rotation? It starts to change. You guys all see that? So we could just do it intuitively, or if you're really specific, you can actually program those numbers in. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So another one is scale. So I can quickly pull it, push it. It's very intuitive, you know, to scale it. Now, the other thing I'm going to point out is, you guys see the units? Anybody knows what the units are?
What the
Units.
units? Centimeters?
They're centimeters. So that's weird, right? Because we work in inches typically, but on a more global level, the metric system is more common. So to really get this right, and I'm totally dorky about it, so I'll admit it, I will even open this up and convert inches to centimeters, or even feet to centimeters, so that I'm like, okay, I want this thing to be, I don't know, let's say I want it really big, so I want it to be 5 feet. You could just copy centimeters, right? And you would plug it right into this, if you want to scale it. You know, and by the way, if this is locked, it's universal. It's like Adobe when you're, playing Photoshop with proportion, right? So you can see it just got way bigger. So let me dolly back out again. And now this thing is much bigger. It's, this beefed up to 10 meters, but now it's about 5 feet in space. So you guys all get that?
Yeah.
So far? Okay. So what else can you do with this, right? Here is really kind of where you get your assets, where you control your main, artwork, what have you. But under that, you see this person who's running. And this is called the behavior builder command, or kind of section of AR. Now, for those of you that are really into like animation and sound and more kind of immersive type of experiences in that sense, this is what they give you, what they provide you. Now, I'll warn you, it's really basic. It's really, really basic. How many of you know how to rig characters and things of that nature in the 3D? Anybody? No? You do? Okay. So you can do that in other software and actually import things like that where you can actually customize an animation. But here you can do very, very limited things, but there are some things you can do. But just to program how it works, as you guys did out there, you tap on the screen. So to start a kind of chain of events, let's just say, you would click on the trigger command, and it's going to ask you how you want to trigger it. Now I always press tap, because it's just more intuitive to me on the screen, but you can experiment with that. And then it asks you, what are we tapping? And you can see that kind of caution symbol means that nothing's recognized. So you've got to select it. And there it is. I just selected Juno Locust projects. And that happens because you can have a lot of stuff in here, and only certain things are activated. And other things are just stationary. Okay? Next is, what kind of action you want it to do. So when you click on the action command, it's going to prompt you. And you've got all of these choices, and play animation would be something that you imported, play images. I'm just going to, these play commands, I'm going to skip past those. And I'm just going to mention spin, bounce, aim, show. These are things you can actually do within this software. So if I want to spin this thing, again, I'll choose that. And there's a lot of redundancy, by the way. You see what happens when I choose the spin command. This section of my screen is going to ask you, what about that? What about that behavior? So you would, pick which axis it spins on, X, Y, or Z. You would pick, sorry. You would pick the duration, you would pick the play count. So I'm just going to say, I don't know, I'm just going to say 10 seconds. I'm just going to ease it out, fine. I'll just say infinite. I'm just sort of clicking things quickly just to kind of blow through this a little bit. But if I click on preview, now here's the difference. Edit is obviously we're editing the artwork. Preview gives you a way that it would sort of show up in the world. So you would double click on your screen and you can see that it's spinning. And you can control this. I mean, you can see it's kind of a little jerky, a little weird. And if you really experiment with these behaviors, I can control how fast it spins, how slow it spins, things of that nature. If I go back and I say, well, it's kind of boring, like it's silent. I want some audio with it. I can actually add another behavior. So I could say, play audio. So this is where you would import something else, okay? So again, that sort of caution graphic brings your eye back to your sort of programmable screen. And it's saying subject, again, it's redundant. You're gonna choose, choose my Locust artwork. And then the audio clip you would import. So it's gonna prompt you, there's presets, I'm gonna use them. Or I could just select my own file and you see something, see what happens. I'm just gonna pick something, click it. And so let's see how that sounds, Can you hear that? I don't think I have sound to go to the screen. Yeah, no sound. Okay.
Crickets.
Is that locked? Is it?
Huh?
You should be able to hear the sound file.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you import these assets, how dependent on resolution are you? Like that file was what, like a 300 dpi? Is that your scaling down?
Great question. So one of the things that, I don't know why I can't hear the sound, but one of the things to be kind of not weary of, but cognizant is, and this is a great, I kind of have this ready. It does have a kind of max capacity, right? So it says 100 megs now. That's pushing it, honestly. I think anywhere between 1 to 50 is really ideal, depending on your Wi-Fi. But again, I'm trying to divorce my own workflow from tonight. But for example, in Blender, I'll decimate some of my assets, meaning that I will, if I have a complex three-dimensional model, and it's just way too heavy, for this software, I'll kind of smooth out the mesh, if that makes any sense, to lower the file size. But 100 megs is pretty good. But you have to experiment. Now, I don't want to drone on. I mean, there's a lot of things to experiment with. But what I really want you guys to do, who actually have the software here, is to do it yourself. So I'm curious, those of you who have laptops, have you been able to import anything into this? Yeah? Okay. And the reason why I say this is if you go to the app, if you go to your app, and you actually open your app, that if you're working on your own artwork, if you're connected to the cloud, it will automatically load it into the app itself. So you can actually test it as you develop it on screen. Does that make sense? So the way you would do that is you would click on the app where you see your artwork, which I'm doing now, and it's quickly looking for, what is it looking for, everybody?
Anchor point.
An anchor point. Check it out. Here's my locust piece. You see it? I don't know if you can see it. Can you sort of see it?
No.
Oh, you know why? Because I gotta do this one. Sorry. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So that's how real time this is. Now let's say you want to share it, like I did too. Okay? How much time do we have?
About 20 minutes, 30 minutes.
You have 20 minutes?
Yeah, about 20, 30 minutes.
Okay, a lot of time. Okay, so if I want to share this, what I just did, I would click on share, and it would create a link, just like any other link, and it would automatically generate a QR code of its own that you would have for yourself.
Now, is
So-
this rendering? Or
No, it's not rendering. No. Now you're like, here's the thing about AR. You can create work in AR, right? Which really has to do with how you take an object and manipulate it, like what I just did with the spinning or bouncing or things of that nature. Or you combine different objects. Does that make sense?
Like layers?
Layers, and I can show that in a minute. So here is what you can do to make it shareable, where you could either copy the link and just send it to all your buddies, or download the QR code, and you could just text it, and it's completely shareable. Okay?
So that's what you did with these stickers?
Exactly. Exactly.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm a little advanced because I'm a 3D modeling artist.
I'm sorry, I don't want to be questioning.
I am a 3D modeling artist. So at the time when I score my art, my 3D modeling,
Yeah.
what I have to do to remove the background, because all the time is the white or the black, background, and I don't want to see that. I just want to see the object.
Okay, from where you model your software.
Yes, how I
Okay.
export or
Yeah, that's a great
export
question.
the
Okay.
Like a PNG? Can you export a PNG or no?
Yeah, you can export whatever, but the thing is like how I remove the background when I export.
Well, PNG will allow you to do that, a JPEG won't.
Yeah. The way that, and it's funny because this is a PNG file, but it's got a background.
Yeah,
I
because
would
sometimes
say,
when I export it in my computer, they don't have background at all. But when I export it to the augmented reality, they have background, the black or the gray or the white.
right, it doesn't recognize.
Yeah, and I don't understand why, because sometimes in my computer, I
Yeah.
say remove the background and actually it's clean, the object is
You know,
clean.
dare I say this, I think that, and you might want to look into something like Blender or something where you can actually cut an image file.
I use Blender for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
That's,
it's
I mean, that's
still-
another workshop. But
It's
I
still
know
like
exactly
that,
what
it's
you're
still
saying.
like when I put it in
Yeah.
augmented reality, it's still the black background, the gray background.
Yeah,
But if you see it in my work, it's just clean.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's funny, so I use, so you, but you're talking about 2D or 3D work?
3D.
3D work. Because 3D work, usually you don't really have a background with 3D work. I wasn't going to show this to you, but for example, the way I work, there's a lot of different modeling software. So whatever works for everybody. This is just one example. But it's slightly different, for 3D objects. I don't know, I mean, what I use Rhino, what was Blender, anybody else, SketchUp, some people use that. Andrew, you want to help out?
AutoCAD.
What now?
AutoCAD.
AutoCAD. It's funny, I don't even know anyone that uses, which I do, by the way. I respect that. But I'll just give you an example because I guess you're throwing me off a little bit. Maybe we can meet privately on this. It's like when I, just gonna continue this. So this, for example, is the bug that you saw out there. And basically, this is what's called a mesh. So a mesh doesn't really have a background, you know what I mean? Like, you can,
It's just the object.
right, it's not, now you can take an image file and you can map an image file onto an object. So this is a mesh, and this mesh, it can exist with many colors and textures on it, whatever I want. But in this case, I mapped just one image onto it, and yeah, I thought it worked.
And what file format is that?
Yeah, so now this is interesting, and I'll use Blender as a more generic example, because Rhino is highly it's specialized, I'll just put it that way, but Blender is very simple. So if I build this in a 3D software, such as Rhino or Blender or SketchUp or AutoCAD, it's always good to look at Save As. You can basically save the file, which in this particular software is, it's a Rhino file. But if I say Save As, that's a means to export it in many different formats. You see that? So I can export it as an Adobe. Basically, all the things that Adobe Aero accepts are in this software. And I'll say Blender, I say Blender is free, it's universal. All of these you can export. So, you know, OBJ, that works. DAE, that works. Blender probably has the most common one, which is a GLB file. Anyway, this is getting a little more technical than I thought. But if you're at that level, you are then creating your own 3D works. So for example, here, if I say export, you see, you get all of these file types, and 2 or 3 of these are compatible with Adobe Aero. Okay?
So all of those exported work in Adobe Aero?
Not all of them, but some of them. So, as I said, if you Google this,
Oh, okay.
these are the file sizes. So 3D you're talking, it's pretty flexible. All of these. It's 555. Now you got to experiment. But see, if it's a 3D file, like a true model, you shouldn't have any problem with backgrounds. So that's why it's really
Maybe it's the way I export.
could be. So let's work together. Maybe we can do that. But for example, if I close out of here and I start over again, I just wanted to show you.
Did that PNG file that you have also have the background or no?
Yes, but by design. I mean, that's what I do. It's just a standard.
Well, yeah, because the difference is like PNG, you can have a knockout.
Yeah, I didn't go about it that way. So.
But then you just have that shape of that.
Yeah, it's funny because this question is very common. Why? Because it's closer to 3D. It's actually an object. It's more of an, you know what I mean? Like if an artist can go and sort of slice through and shape a two-dimensional file and bring it in, it's not quite 3D, but you see what I mean? It starts to get there, and then you can kind of blend it into it. So I didn't think about that tonight. It would have been a good next time. But like for example, so this is what a 3D, let's see if I can just open something. This is what a 3D file type would look like of your own in Aero. So you wouldn't have the background, I guess is the only point. So,
And it has that drop shadow.
yes, now, I'm glad you noticed that. I had Andrew turn the lights on before we did the tour, because to me, the shadow is what sells it. That's what sells it. So if you've got that.
Okay, but that is a 2D model or 3D model?
This is a 3D model.
So, and you created a Reno or Blender?
My workflow includes all of this softwares. So and that's the other thing is like, you create a flow for yourself because a lot of artists work between software. So it's kind of Rhino, it's a big chain. So we can talk about that. But I guess my point is this, that once you get it into a three-dimensional file format, you should be good there.
Yeah, because I noticed the one that's right here was huge in scale. So as you're standing there, you have to back up all the
True, but it
way.
doesn't need to be. Because of the scale command. If you recall, there's the scale command, so I can make this thing tiny if I want, right? I can bring this all the way down to something that's the size of my foot.
Right, so when we were out there and you did that, we'd be able to see the whole object, right? Because if you were loading it, you're like in the
You're
object.
in it. You don't always have to be in the object. Absolutely, you can look down, or the object can float. And that's the thing about these commands, for example, like move. And I can just move this and float it, and spin it, and bounce it. And so I just encourage you guys to play around with it. And now you
There's no
got
commands when you're in that arrow. There's no commands of like where things are, right? You kind of have to go find it.
no, that's a great question. Within the interface, if it's not, if you've like created an anchor point that's like way over there,
Yeah.
there'll be an arrow
Okay, that's
that
good.
you can click on that will sort of direct you
Okay.
to there. So yeah. So you gotta play a look. I mean, I just basically messed around back and forth. And I'm still, there's glitches and there are weird things that happen, but it's really easy just to get something started. Yeah.
I have these error, especially like I tried to just make them do whatever. I would give them that. Does that mean that that thing just can't do that?
Yeah, okay, that's an animator? Yeah. I actually, I don't really work with their animated objects, but maybe, oh, you know what it is? You need to choose it here. So owl spin, you want to choose, you want to go here and choose owl spin, or the owl. Right there. There you go, now you got it. So now the action, now you would assign the action, which might be rotate, orbit, messing around with this.
And then here is play.
Right, so there are things you've got to actually assign it, like a rotation point, a duration, how many times you want to spin.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
But what I'd like to do, like, okay, so